Hey there, welcome to the garden. So I was just out here doing a couple little chores and I thought I would sit down and kind of chat with you about one of my ideas for 2023 that I'm actually really excited about with all of the containers. So obviously, I love growing in the containers. It's one of my favorite ways to grow plants. I think it's just super fun, kind of like an interesting challenge. And then it's also what I can do in my space because I just have this small little container garden. Basically, I have a few raised beds and a little bit of growing space, but not that much because I have such a small garden. So containers have become one of my real staples. I'm so inspired by some of the really beautiful collections of containers that you'll see. A lot of English gardens, kind of like cottage gardens, you'll just see these beautiful arrangements of containers, often with like one type of plant in each container, and these like just gorgeous setups and layouts. And all of last year, I really played around with the different layouts of my containers, trying to kind of find the best setup that I liked, that I felt really worked for the space. It is a small space, so I love the kind of maximalist look of containers, but I also don't want my garden to look cluttered. And I felt like I was just really struggling to kind of like get an arrangement of these containers that I thought looked good and didn't look cluttered. I pulled out all my containers. Now that there's really not much, actively growing in them, I can really see like where each container is. I've put them all out, and I think I really like this layout that I have now. We can kind of look at it in a minute here. I really think that it's something that works for the space, and now I'm kind of thinking I want to challenge myself to leave the containers in this exact position throughout the whole season so that we can kind of watch the progression of different flowers, as we sub in different things, as the few perennials that I have in containers start taking off. We can kind of really see those differences. My garden is sort of ever changing, but I move the containers around a lot typically, and I'm gonna see, I think this year, if I can hold myself to keeping all those containers in one location and then just letting them morph and change over the year. Hopefully, this time next year we can look back and see this kind of incredible progression of the garden by leaving the containers in place. I don't know about you, if you have a container garden, if you move yours around, you keep in one spot, there's something really beautiful about like just that great setup of containers and then watching it change. That's the goal for this year anyways. So I came out here and did kind of like my basic winter routine, which is just sweeping up. I do have some bird feeders off the patio up above, so they do spill out a little bit in the garden. So I did some sweeping up and cleaning out in the containers, and then I've got them basically arranged where I think I want them to be for the whole season. And I'll give you kind of like the little layout and we can kind of go for there. The principles that I basically used were just having containers of different sizes and different heights so that it wasn't all like one size or one height. I think that helps the overall look. Let me show you. As I said, a maximalist kind of idea, but here you go. All the containers. It took me a while to really, get the layout and get the feel, but I think what it comes down to is, here I am pointing at my coffee cup, is the different heights. As you can see, we've got different sizes and different heights that build in this little kind of collection or like arrangement of containers themselves. I'm gonna have to come out here and really look at like my garden plans for the summer so that I make sure I have, the plants that I want for these containers. But this is sort of the layout. Hopefully enough room that, as you can see, I can walk through, but that's still not super crowded. That is the absolute biggest challenge. And I do have a few containers in the landscape as well. So these are actually these two big ones here on either side of the trellis. These have clematis in them, which hopefully will winter over and come back and then grow up the trellis. Right now we've got the greens on the trellis, which I am just absolutely loving. But I'm hoping that, the clematis will cover it, and then I'm gonna actually grow tomatoes in the raised beds going over the trellis as well. This trellis is going to be busy this summer. I do have this one random pot right here, but that's actually got catnip in it, and it ends up looking really, really beautiful and grows really well there, I know. Now, the pots are all a little dirty. As you can see, we got some rain and I need to come out and hose them down. That is one thing that is important. You'll see, like, you know, they get a little dirty. So I do need to do a little bit of care like that, but anyways, forgive that for now. And then I've got 2 pots over here in this landscape just to kind of help with some height. I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna put in them this summer. Maybe a little bit of like some basil or some salvia or something like that I think would be pretty. I did plant Mexican sunflowers in the ground over here last year and I loved it. I'm gonna do that again. And I also bought a climbing rose, which is gonna go right there on that corner and grow over the fence, which, yeah, that's gonna be really, really beautiful. So I'm super excited for that. I've gotta make sure I leave room, but I'm gonna fill this area with kind of like some more zinnias and different blooming things. But I'm gonna leave those pots in the containers, or those containers in the landscape there, because it just slants down, so it's a little bit hard to get the right like gradient of plants. Like the plants get lost a little bit, so having the containers in the landscape I found just helped. So those were there last year and I'm gonna keep them there this summer. I've got a couple pots over here. This area is gonna be like the grow bag section again, so I'm not worried about that, but it's the pots in this area that are gonna stay in their current arrangements. The only other container in the landscape that I have right now is the container pond, which is just so fun. And that's gonna stay where it is because this was a good spot for, oh look, you can see the little minnow. That's a ruby red minnow. So much fun. But yeah, so here's the view of the garden. Let me know what you think. Keeping the pots in the same place or moving them. Obviously, if I really hate it, you know, in the middle of the year, I'll check back in and let you know that I've decided I have to move them. And I just can't, you know, I can't stand it. But I think it's gonna be a fun challenge. And I think that's one of the things, you know, I've been gardening for a few years now, and you start to kind of feel, at least I do, you kind of feel like a little bit of a lull of like, okay, you know, I've grown a lot of these annuals and I've seen a lot of these plants before, and there's new plants coming out, but like I'm seeing things that I've seen before. I'm doing things I've done before, you know, it's not all new. And so like how to keep, you know, your gardening fresh and interesting. And I think coming up with little challenges like this, or design, you know, learning new designs are really a great way to kind of keep your interest and that like extra flame of, you know, when you're brand new and you're learning, that extra excitement. I think coming up with different challenges like this is a great way to do that. I know for me, trying to figure out this layout for the containers was a really good challenge that kind of kept my interest and my, you know, like my spark for the garden really alive. And then now growing through it throughout the year, refreshing the different plants in it, keeping these plants looking beautiful and keeping the layout looking good throughout the season. I know that's going to be a really good challenge for me and something that's, yeah, just going to keep me fresh and interested in going out to the garden. Not that I'm, you know, I don't love gardening, but it's definitely something that, yeah, you just want to keep learning and keep pushing yourself. I think it makes it more fun. So that's my little thought for these containers. I'm super excited. I'm going to take a couple like before pictures when we get right into January and say like, this is the start. And then we will, yeah, just keep watching it over the year. I want to do like weekly updates on Instagram, like a weekly like video or reels or something, so you can kind of see like the weekly progression. And then I'll do more probably like monthly updates or something here on YouTube, just because they're a bit longer form. But I'm so excited. I'm like already ready for summer. Now that I've got all these ideas, I need to get out my seeds and do some seed inventories. And yeah, I'm ready. Is it summer? Is it growing season yet? I don't know, but at least it's nice. It's fun to get out in the garden, even in, you know, even in the winter, get out in the garden, enjoy the plants, do some dreaming. Yeah, I hope you're getting a chance to get out in your garden today. And thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.